Good afternoon, Redwall survivor. Foxpen here, checking in for another chapter of Mossflower Odyssey 4, The Beast and the Creator, top 30 character application reviews and readings. This next category I'm going to do is The Beast Driven by Love. I just put all the categories into a randomizer to choose the next one. The first three that I already reviewed, they were up for a few days, so I had a chance to read them over. From now on, everything is going to be sight read, so just bear with me on my mispronunciations, any crackling from the recorder, of course. Don't blame me for that. It's my fault that I can't do nothing about it. So so The Beast Driven by Love is gonna be a fun category. Very easy to write a character who has love-related motivations, but very hard to write one convincingly and well enough that I don't get bored of them. This happens a lot. I've seen so many bloody chick flicks over the years that you can almost call a love story before it even happens sometimes. And yeah, I don't want to see that in this competition. I'm not looking for any crazy love stories. I don't need any epics. I don't need anything like heavy in maturity or anything, but I do want to see a well-written mature love story. Like, I'm not, when I say mature, I mean like just it's mature. It's like, it's not like puppy love, you know. It's not Game of Thrones here, people. It's not good on. Anyway, so love could mean any number of things too. It could be love of another, it could be a love of oneself, as is the case of Ander the Weasel, who I'll be reading first. Could be love for something as simple as, a belt buckle. People get attached to those things. So, what kind of love am I looking for in these applications? I don't really care what kind of love the applicants throw my way, just so long as it convinces me that, this could be a feasible love story. Anyway, so here we go, and I'm going to start with Ander, who is a 33-year-old male weasel. You are the handsomest, the richest, the most adored. Ander, you good-looking son of a king. Soon you'll be the most famous creature to ever step paw in Mossflower Woods. Chief! The weasel spun round in his chair, brown eyes ablaze as he spied the perpetrator responsible for tearing him from his ode to himself. What is it now, dummy? The short rat, standing at the entrance to his tent, shifted nervously. Thing is, the name's Dimmy, sir. Anywho, the Corsair leader says he ain't waiting no longer, and if you don't come out soon, he's gonna come in here himself and knock you up good, sir. Ander reached across his vanity and picked up a heavily ornamented goblet of wine, staring crossly at the rat while he sipped it. Go tell the Corsair leader to bring his absolute best. Nodding, Dimmy hurried off. Ander rolled himself back around, running a brown paw across his gold coins, the gaudy trinkets on his desk, and then at last the mirror, where he arrogantly locked eyes with himself. Goodness knows I will. A toast. He shot up, jovially clinking his chalice against his reflections, and then proceeded to down the entire thing. Outside, the tone was entirely different. Ander's small band of 6 vermin were largely outnumbered and were only proving easy targets for the pirates, whom already thought they had won. Even in the weasel's own group, there were rumors that their chief had backed down. The vermin were ready to kill him, be that true. Ander adjusted his blue frock coat while he fumbled through his things for his weapon of choice, a thin silver rapier with an intricate handle. Next, he attached a minuscule poison blade to the underside of his paw. The weasel flashed himself a grin before he spun on his heels and paraded out into the open, tail bobbing behind him. Ander the awe-inspiring has arrived, he announced, charging blindly through the piratical assembly. Vermin and corsairs parted to make room, and whereas prideful Ander raced forth like an excited Dibbon, the pirate captain remained in his place. Without looking, Ander leapt and came down, blade first into the dirt, aching with reverberation. He glanced up at his adversary while he freed his sword. Vermin laughed. The captain was a large, hulking sea rat with a face like thunder. His eyes were a deep brown and his fur a dark gray, and his expression betrayed nothing. He held a great curved sword up in front of him. Ander panted, surprised at the exertion it took to finally wrench his rapier free. He grinned sheepishly up at the pirate and was traded a spine-tingling sneer. The rat curled his lip. I'm afraid that no beast said go, This is a duel, and I expect you to follow the terms we agreed upon earlier. Do you remember them?"
"Of course. Do you think I'm daft?" The crew sniggered.
Ander felt indignant. No cheating, he listed, face glowing red underneath his fur. No outside intervention or action. The winner gets the riches and crew of the other. The weasel's heart felt about to pound out of his chest. There was no way he would allow himself to lose this, not after so much humiliation.
"Shall we shake paws for good measure?"
Silence. The poker-faced rat captain extended a paw, and Anders shook it for all he was worth. At last the weasel stepped back and reclaimed his weapon, and the two were at it at once. Back and forth and to and fro the leaders went, the rat attacking and Ander hardily managing to defend. Just when he thought he was done for, he noticed his enemy's face screw up. The effects of the poison were working. Ander feigned a jab at the pirate's side, but the rat was already doubled over, pain-faced and dead as stone. Somewhere in the back of the crowd, 6 vermin raised their voices in cheer. Stunned, Ander saw his moment. He jumped over the body and cried out, "Another victory for me, Handsome Ander, the champion fighter!" One of the most aggressive pirates raised his voice, too. "This upstart killed our leader. Are we going to stand for that? No!" Before he knew it, Ander was running on all fours with the whole ensemble after him. He tripped on a hole in the ground and twisted his leg. "Spare me!" the weasel sobbed. A fox started forward with a bundle of rope. "Oh, we'll spare ye all right." So there you go, Ander. Ander's application would have done well in the silly beast category as well, I think. Obviously he fits into the he fights for love because he's fighting for himself, and he loves himself more than anything. He's a typical vermin, weasel. He leads a band, modest band, mind you. He's also, not above cheating or murder. He poisons his opponent after extending a paw for a handshake. That was funny. He's also a bully, poor Dimmy the rat. I like Dimmy the rat. I would really watch a Netflix series on just Dimmy the rat's life. Anyway, enough about Dimmy the rat and more about Ander the awe-inspiring. I really enjoyed the tick in the writing where when Ander is by himself, he has nothing to prove him wrong, that he is stuck in this fantasy of his own grandeur self being, I guess. He thinks he's handsome, he thinks he's clever and rich, and people love him. He also thinks he's going to be a legend, but really, when you get down to it, he's just a spineless coward, kind of. I should say spineless because he does go into battle without flinching, but when you get down to it, at the end, he's still growling for his life when he's faced against numbers. He has no skill. He can't get by without cheating. So, in that regard, he's a typical vermin. But yeah, like I was saying, I got sidetracked there. He's in the tent, and he's so cool when he's by himself. He thinks he's a son of a king. But at the moment he gets outside, we find out he's been humiliated. His own crew's mocking him. He's got no respect. He's alone. And that lends to the character, what he could be fighting for, love of himself that maybe he deserves, or perhaps he'll eventually fight for, the love of others. He wants others to love him, and maybe he'll eventually come to see that he has to get his act together if he's going to achieve that. He could be a fun villain. There's always a fun villain. We had Carrigul in MO1, Journey to Carrigul, Keldon Crow in Mossflower Odyssey 2, Journey into the Deep, rather. But, Keldon, his character was just an asshat through and through. And that's why his character had trouble connecting with other characters. So, Ander, a word of caution, you can have a villain, you can have a great villain, but eventually you do need to work on making connections with other characters. And that's a pitfall that you can fall into when you're a villain. Keldon was a very skilled writer, but, without those connections, the character just didn't make it. Carrigul too, he unfortunately, the writer of Carrigul had to drop out of the contest due to personal reasons. which I cannot remember. But yeah, that character, like, he was such a cool villain. But he was a cool villain not just because he stayed in his own villainous mind, but because he knew he was forced to establish connections. Yeah, he was a toad in the snow, right? So if Ander can make meaningful connections with other characters, I see this silly little weasel guy being a contender for the competition. I didn't notice anything jarring when I was reading through it, but there just seems to be a few formatting things with the application. That could, of course, that could have been the problem Zevka was facing when putting up the applications, or just like the conversion from whatever Word program to the the forums. So just keep an eye on the formatting, because you don't want to get booted out for a stupid reason like paragraph indents. Anywho, so that was Ander, and congratulations, Ander, on making it into the top 30. I'm looking at the next contestant, and I'm noticing the same formatting errors too. So, just scrap what I said about the formatting errors. I'm not going to talk about that anymore. Just like the spag, it's not really too jarring to the tale, so it's kind of irrelevant in hindsight. Anyways, next in our category of the beast motivated by love, we have Blu Yardel. She's a 23 female cross fox. Now, I'm not sure what you mean, Blue, by cross fox. Is she a cross of some subspecies of fox? Is she a fox dog? A fox coyote? I don't think coyotes actually live in Great Britain, but like, what do you mean by cross fox? Just for the future, when you think of species that you want to write, think of the species. Is the cross of the fox absolutely necessary to the character? Not really. It's not like Kentager and McGrath, who may or may not be crazy. He's a mountain hare. That's relevant to his moral compass, to his character, to his very center of being. But cross fox just seems unnecessary. Seems a little gimmicky to me. Anyway, who knows? Maybe it'll come up. Maybe it'll play a big part of this character. So here we go, Blu Yardel. A rotted cabbage smacked wetly against the fox's face, where it protruded from the stalks. Blu snarled reflexively, but the crowd only taunted and teased, a crowd made up of those whom she used to call friends. She spotted the baker, Cornella, who just yesterday let her barter some baskets for bread. "Please, I didn't—" A moldy onion thumped her on the muzzle, and she bit her tongue. No one was listening. No one cared what her side of the story might be. All they saw was the placard exposing her crime to the world. Thief. Garbage, stones, and mud pelted the imprisoned fox until a figure stepped forward out of the mob. It was a hefty vole wearing a fine brocade doublet. Blu recognized the hat maker and looked away in shame. "I hear tell, Miss Yardel, if not for the night watch owl, I'd have wakened this morning a much poorer beast." He held out a cane, lifting her chin until she met his reproachful eyes. "You're lucky not to be dangling from the end of a noose," he spat. "Wretched wench." Hours later, the constable hare approached, clanking a set of keys. The frame was lifted and the vixen moaned, stiff in the neck and raw in the wrists. Her fur was matted with filth and several welts stood out on her body where she'd been struck. "I bally well hope you've learned your lesson, miss," the officer chided. Blu managed a weak nod, then stumbled away towards home. From a distance, the fox could tell something was amiss, and when she came upon the shack, her fears were confirmed. All her belongings lay scattered across the road, smashed and ransacked by passer-by. Panic seized her heart as she raced up to the padlocked door. She rattled it violently until a small voice called behind her, "Mama?" She turned to find her 3 kits huddled beside the woodpile. She ran to them and they clung to her, crying. "Oh, my darlings!" She fell to her knees, covering them in kisses. "Are you all right?" "Yes, Mama," they said together. "What happened?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. Her landlady had made it abundantly clear the night before that she was not giving them another extension. "Mrs. Shore chased us out and threw all our stuff out the door." Dahlia, the oldest, replied, "We looked for you at the basket booth, but you weren't there." The kit's lip trembled. "Chins up, my little pups," Blu comforted her children. "We'll find another place to stay." The fox salvaged what she could from the mess in the road. Her tools at least were unharmed, and she found one of her larger baskets still intact, which they filled with garments, some cracked wooden bowls, and tattered blankets. Blu washed her clothes and fur as best as she could at the pump, then filled some gourds to sustain them on the long journey ahead. Now that she had a reputation, they would likely need to travel much further than the next town. They set off, but after just a mile the youngest kit, Rufus, wanted to be carried. Moira too lagged behind, sucking on the ear of her rag doll. Dahlia tried to turn the walk into a skipping game, but gave up shortly after. They continued trudging slowly along until the sun sank low in the sky. Blu was considering where they might bed down for the night when she spotted movement out of the corner of her eye. She barked a warning and her kits gathered close. A familiar band of robbers stepped out of the forest on either side of them. Not again. Blu's hackles rose as the ferrets circled. Leave us alone. You already took everything. There's nothing left. One of the robbers dug through the basket, tossing rags and bedding out with annoyance until he reached the bottom. Aye, she got nothing, boss. The lead ferret studied the fox family. Not quite, Broden. He made a motion and the ferret punched Blu hard in the stomach. She fell to the ground, gasping. Take the kits. Blu's world turned inside out. Near her paw was the rag she'd wrapped her bodkin in. She seized it, pulling free the steel awl. In an instant she was on her feet, driving the pointed instrument up through Broden's throat. He dropped and Blu spun to face the rest, blood streaming down her forearms. Over my dead body. So there you have it, Blu. Oh my gosh, actually I kind of like how her application ended on that note, because you know what's coming. You know one way or the other she winds up in the gladiator pit. However, you don't know what happens to her children, and I kind of want to know what happens to her poor kids. This poor Vizon is just not having any luck, and everything's going millhouse on her, and I feel bad for her. I do. I feel bad for this woman. Anyone who's ever been broke or ever been evicted or ever even come close to anything like that, people know it's shame. You feel shame. You're embarrassed. Your pride goes to hell. And this fox she's doing the best she can, just raising her kids. She's just, no one is on her side, and I suspect that's due to speciesism, or racism rather, in Redwall. So I like this character. I like how she's addressing an issue that has been addressed in quite a few applications so far. Honestly, I didn't know what to expect when people were writing the applications, because in past contests that line between vermin and good beast has been pretty transparent. It's not there anymore like it used to be in the old competitions. Blu, she obviously loves her kids. She's going to do anything for them, including go crazy and shank a beast, which is great. So, she can kill, she can fight, she's got her wits about her. And yeah, she's definitely fighting for love. The love of, she's being a mother, protecting her kids. The imagery throughout the application's pretty nice. You feel each hit of rotten onion as it smacks into her poor nose, and the author has written a very clear picture and answers every question that is raised in the application. How did she get in the stocks, and why was she evicted? And you really get the sense this is a very poor person. She's just doing her best. I want to know more about this character. I do. I'm on Team Blu at the moment. I'm just going to say that. So we're going to move on now. First of all, congratulations, Blu, for getting into the top 30, of course. Last but not least, in our category of the beast driven by love, we have Minerva. She's a river otter in her 30s. So we're getting a specific age. I would prefer, a specific age, something a little bit more, I don't know, early 30s, mid 30s, late 30s. Because just because in a not a survival style competition, but a competition where you're trying to survive, a gladiator fight ring, basically, your age does merit relevance. But it doesn't really matter for the sake of the application. So I'm just throwing that out there, Minerva, for the competition itself. Anyway, let's get going. Scarred paws caressed cold iron as Minerva unfastened the lock and let the chains fall slack at the foot of the door to the old shed. A shuffling sound came from within, and the otter knelt to pick up her lantern before pulling it open. Shadows danced along the walls and rafters as her light filled the dark shack, revealing dusty crates, broken farm tools laced with cobwebs, and the weasel that was tied from head to tail to a chair on the floor. The beast's whiskers drooped as she entered, cries of protest muffled by the cloth gag tied tightly around his mouth. "Hush now." Minerva set down her lantern. "You've got plenty of time to talk later." The otter looked at the chair the beast was secured to and how it had fallen, probably from all his desperate writhing. She worked them both back upright, chiding the vermin as she did. Now, didn't I tell you to sit still? Must have been a nasty fall you took, seeing you've gone and hurt yourself." She stepped around to his front and wiped the edge of her sleeve against his nostril, scrubbing away a gobbet of dried blood. The weasel looked defiantly to the floor as the otter knelt to his level. "Sorry, mate. No sleeping on me." "How about a story to keep you awake?" Minerva said, grasping a snout and forcing the beast to meet her gaze. "It's about my husband. You see, that wolf was never good for much, but he was a fine angler, and this," she said, brandishing a thin metal object on a cord around her neck, "was his favourite fishhook. Over the seasons I saw him pulling the biggest trout you'd ever seen with this thing, but there was one time where, I don't know how, but he managed to snag one right through the eye with it." The weasel's whimper made it clear he got the message, and Minerva dropped all pretense of tenderness. "Right, listen here, scum," she growled. "I'm going to take that gag off, and when I do, you're going to tell me why you and the rest of your band of brigands were snooping around my farm last night. Answer well, and maybe I'll let you join 'em. Sound good?" The beast nodded. "Good." The gag hit the floor. "Get talking." Minerva stood over the washtub in the darkness of her kitchen, scrubbing a soapy rag against the bloodied edge of her fishhook. In the end, the weasel spilled everything he knew, and the otter reunited him with the rest of his ilk. Swinging from the boughs at the edge of the wood, their corpses would serve as good warnings for any beast who dared come after. From the window above her came a dim ray of moonlight. Minerva raised her hook towards it, satisfied when the tip shone as bright as it did the day it was given to her. The otter held it there, remembering that lazy day by the stream and the question that broke the quiet, before lowering it back to its rightful place around her neck and letting its sheen be lost to shadow. The floorboards behind creaked under careless paw steps, and she turned quickly to see a young otter peeking at her through tired eyes. Minerva wiped her paws on her apron and bent over to pick up the dibbon. "Fable, what are you doing out of bed, sweetheart?" Fable buried her head in her mother's chest. "I had a scary dream," she sobbed. Minerva ran her paw tenderly through the young one's fur. Shh, it's all right. Mommy's got you. A few minutes later, the young otter calmed, and her mother smiled at her reassuringly as she wiped away her tears. "See? There ain't anything to be afraid of. The thing you got to remember about nightmares, sweetheart, is that's all they are. Just scary dreams. They're not real. Now, let's go get you back to bed." "But what if I get scared again?" Fable whimpered. "Tell you what, I'll sit next to your bedside till you fall back asleep. How does that sound?" "You will?" "Aye, I won't let nothing scary get you, I promise." With practiced steps, Minerva carried Fable back to her bed and tucked her in under the covers, humming old songs and stroking her head until the young one closed her eyes. As her daughter slumbered peacefully, the otter caressed the fishhook around her neck. "Just scary dreams," she whispered to herself. So there's Minerva. I'm going to say right off the bat, whilst I was reading this application, I got interrupted by several phone calls. So I'm really sorry if the accent that I gave Minerva kind of falters a little bit. I'm sorry if the editing comes out a little choppy. I'd be midway through a sentence and then my phone would go off. And because I'm recording on my cell phone, as my laptop speaker is a little busted at the moment. So yeah, there's that bit of awkwardness. And actually, it's happening right now. Actually, my phone is going off. Right. Okay, so Minerva, we get a fantastic mom, another mom in this category. I say fantastic because she is a very good mom. She's very patient with her baby and the nightmares and all that. That whole scene was very heartwarming. The author really creates a really lovely scene. I can picture everything that's going on. The lantern filling the shack with light. The weasel tied up from tail to to ears, so, you know, she's obviously, like, taking the time to bound him up so he's not going anywhere. The ominous story she tells, that threat she delivers him. You know, she kills him in the end, and she's already killed the other vermin that were snooping around her barn. Without provocation, too, because she doesn't even know why they were there. They could have just been a bunch of, you know, lost bums looking for a place to spend the night, but this cray otter just came in and was like, nope. So, yeah, she's, there's also the question of where is her oaf of a husband. She obviously, like, has a little fondness for him, at the very least. You know, I don't know how in depth we're gonna go on that front, but, she seems to be a family-oriented lady. So, is she protective of her kid? And that multi-murder spree that she goes on, is that because she has this need to protect the kid because maybe something happened in the past? Or maybe she just really hates vermin and just happens to be a really tentative mom at the same time. Hey, who knows? It happens. So yeah, really good use of description. The motif of that fish hook keeps coming up. What I got from the application, it's, you know, it was a bit of an ambiguous sentence, intentionally so. From the window above her came a dim ray of moonlight. Minerva raised her hook towards it, satisfied when the tip shone as bright as it did the day it was given to her. The otter held it there, remembering that lazy day by the stream and the question that broke the quiet before lowering it back to its rightful place around her neck and letting its sheen be lost to shadow. So I'm thinking maybe her husband used the hook to, like, propose to her. Maybe he was an angler, he was a fisherman. Maybe that's all he had, his lucky hook or something. Maybe that's why she keeps it, because something did happen. Or just because she's got fond memories of him and the hook, or maybe just, you know, it's just become over the years her weapon of choice. We don't know, but I'm curious enough that I want to know this lady's story. I want to know what's going to happen when she's taken to the crater, what's going to happen with her kids. There's a lot of child NPCs this round. Yeah, I'm just realizing that now. There's a lot. So there's going to be a lot of side plots probably for this contest, which, you know, that's fine. We're going to have a great cast no matter what. To wrap it up, congratulations, Minerva. You know, congratulations, Blu. Congratulations, of course, to Ander, you arrogant son of a king. All of you, you're in the top 30, so you've gotten farther than some. Good for you. Next on my list of reviews, I'm not sure. I'm going to use my randomizer to find out what category I'm going to do. Revenge. Okay, so we're still climbing that ladder in the order of posting. Maybe I'll just stick with that after all. I don't know. It seems to be fate. Anyway, so I'll see y'all next time on Foxpen Reviews, Mossflower Odyssey 4, The Beasts in the Crater, Top 30 application. All right, y'all have a great evening. We'll see you around. Foxpen out.